without being offensively noisy. Yes, all right.
There you go.
We look a bit like a rock star. So, good morning, everybody. This is kind of cool. You all got here really early, which I think is kind of daunting, and we now have to try and deliver something, hopefully, that's worth getting up early for. So we'll try our best. I'm going to try and blast through a little bit of sort of where we're at in our thinking. We've previously done these presentations and I've talked about new stuff we've launched. We've done stuff where I said where we began. I kind of want to give you a little bit of an update as to what is driving some of the decisions we're making now. So I'm going to try and do that, and I hope it's of some interest and doesn't appear too focused on us, but it is sort of important, I think. So, welcome, that's the first bit. Secondly, I have a question for you, which is with a simple show of hands, and I promise I won't get you to do your hands up the whole day. How many of you have been to a conference event before, of any sort? The guys that I've met this week in San Francisco said, we specialize in dumb questions, so get ready for a few. So I think we can agree that's 100%. My follow-up question, how many of you have been to a conference event where the first speaker, or any speaker, is introduced by their dad? It's a conference first. Biggerplate Unplugged San Francisco has given you a conference experience that you've never had before. We are a family business, and people look on in complete disbelief and misunderstanding as to what that means. So, Graham is my father. Some people spot that, some people massage his ego and say, brother? I think they're just being kind. I started Biggerplate when I was leaving university, and I sort of chipped away at it on my own for a few years, and Dad was doing his sort of work over here in sort of consultancy land, and we just had a really nice coincidence of timing, where I was helping him with some bits and pieces. He was sort of supporting me at arm's length in this thing, saying, fail by yourself, I don't want anything to do with it. And then it started to get some traction. He said, I'm quite interested in this thing you're doing over here. This consulting lark is kind of crazy. So we are a family business, and the important thing that we just like to stress without hammering home the point too much is we're in the home sort of big investment and shareholders and angel investors. We don't have any of that. Our stakeholders are 65,000 mind mappers who've joined up with Biggerplate and sort of joined up with our mission, whether they realize it or not. So I want to take you back a little bit, if I can, to London, November 2013. There's a dark and stormy English night. The sort that only England can serve up. And I had a very enjoyable meeting with someone who's been on the Biggerplate picture since it began. And that is Mr. Chance Brown, who's on your agenda today as a speaker. And Chance probably won't like me sort of putting him up here and saying all this, he'll get a bit embarrassed. But Chance is a very cool guy, so you should definitely talk with him. But he's been sort of on the journey with us right from the start. And he said, I'm sending you I'm coming to London, do you want to get together and have some food? Absolutely. I said, where do you want to go? London. We've got loads of different restaurants. He says, Wagamama's. Does Wagamama's mean anything to anyone here? All right. It's a really good sort of Pan-Asian food, and he's like, I haven't been here for years, that's what I want. I want to go to Wagamama's. Okay, noodles it is. So here we are, here Wagamama's, with a waitress who I think had 6 attempts to get our photo. We're having a really good dinner, and Chance says to me, I've been involved and a participant in this since the start, but what's the mission? And I said, this is easy. Knock this one out of the park, no problem, I know this one. The mission for Biggerplate is to be the best source of mind mapping, content and community in the world. We've made no secret of that, we share that quite willingly as our goal. So, got it. He said, yeah, but why? Panic. I thought I'd answered the question really, really well. He said, but why do you want to be the best source of mind mapping, content and community in the world? Why? So as I pretended to eat noodles for quite some time without answering the question, we then actually got to talking about why Chance was asking me that question. And he had been watching a TED talk from Simon Sinek, who some of you might be familiar with or read the book. And the concept here is starting with why. And the concept is pretty simply that a lot of companies start with, here's what we do, buy it. And not many companies start with, here's why we're doing this. And here's why this product is our sort of end result. So Chance asked me this, he said, why strive for that goal? Why is that important? More importantly, why would anybody else care? If we achieve that goal, good for Biggerplate, you know, the guys who own the business, what does that matter to me as a participant in this mission? And why would anybody support that? Is that an empowering objective for people who might gather in a room like this? So I said, all right, Chance, eat your noodles. I can't answer this. You know, just leave me alone. So he went back to the US, and I had a very considered approach to analysing the answer, coming up with all the really key points. I was very systematic, and I didn't at all take it very badly and descend into a slight sort of mania around this thing. And the reason I got so worked up about it is because I knew I had the answer. I knew internally there was a why. I just hadn't actually been forced to try and articulate it or to try and explain it. So I got a bit irritated, and then I said, okay, I'm going to try and engage with this idea and try and figure out what it is I know about our why. And Chance, I hope, have come up with a good answer. You know, we've bounced a lot of emails back and forward, and I said, I think I'm getting close to it. Not yet. Okay, keep going. The answer really about the why is what we genuinely believe, and in my meetings this week, it's sort of been reinforced quite a lot. We believe mind mapping is the missing link. Originally, the presentation I had was, is mind mapping the missing link? Yes. Thank you, good night, have a good day. We think it is the missing link. We think it's the information in what we would call sort of information workers. The reality is that's most of us. We are all dealing with a huge amount of information and idea management, both trying to get it out of our brains and also deal with what's coming at us. And we think actually in business and education we're not using the right tools. We in this room are, we're the smart ones. But we see a lot of people struggling, and I'm sure you've all seen people in your organizations or in your education establishments who just don't seem to be able to find that thing that unlocks it for them. So you believe this too, I think. I think all the people here today believe, although they may not have articulated it in the same way that I do, believe that mind mapping, although it is just a tool, a process, an approach, it is actually the missing link for a lot of people. And I think that's why people get so heated up about mind mapping. If you saw the discussions we see in Paris and the Netherlands and London and hopefully here, people get really worked up about mind mapping. And I think it's because they see, why are more people not using this? This is crazy. So I think you believe this too. And I think that because you're here. You're a mapper, which probably means you've experienced that feeling of, this is the answer. This is the tool I should be using in this context. And we are not of the mindset that mind maps solve everything. We just think there are certain things that they really solve. This is where our interest lies. And I think it's very likely you've all seen or felt this in some way. Even if you're relatively new to it, I think you would have just gone, oh, this seems to work. And I think that's a really significant thing. How often do people get really het up and excited about PowerPoint or Excel or other tools we use? It just isn't the same. So there's something in this. We know this. So the question now, and the challenge for Biggerplate and for mappers rather, the mapping community, is prove it. Mind mapping is the missing link. Prove it. So this is why Biggerplate does what we do. And that's what I've come to realize. We actually want to help prove that we're not all crazy. We're not all the nutters in the corner with the crayons. They actually know a lot about how this stuff works. We understand it, we're passionate about it, and it just does work. Prove it. So we've got to gather evidence. And from my perspective, our contribution to this prove it task comes in the form of gathering mind maps and mappers. Here today, we have mappers. On Biggerplate, we have a huge library of mind maps. It's just showing the different contexts in which mind mapping can be used. And when you get together with people in a room like this, someone says to you, I've been using it for this. And you go, oh, I didn't think of that. We had someone out here who's done genealogy, sort of building maps that represent family histories and things like this. Someone who's been doing teaching electrical apprenticeships. Stuff I never would have thought of when we started Biggerplate. We thought it was just going to be kids sharing maps of GCSE history. So we've got to do things that do these better. We've got to get more mind maps. And for us, it is a quest of quantity, not quality. We want to see as many maps as possible, and we are not going to judge what is a good map, what is a bad map. We're going to get them all on a platform, and you, the community, are going to say, I think this is a really good example of solving this problem with this map. The community will judge the quality. So our task is actually about helping you guys and the wider community gather quantity. So we're going to do something that's really focused on seamless sharing. So if you're doing a map today in one of your favorite softwares, being able to press a button within that software that just fires it onto Biggerplate and it's shared, it's in the library. That means, I'm told, we have to build an API. For technical people in the room, they'll be, well, that's bloody obvious. For people like me, that is, I don't know what that means. No idea. Just in case you're worried that today is going to be very technical, my dad and I know nothing technical. Okay? This is our sort of fun time. People, not pixels. It's kind of nice. So we're going to build something that means if you create maps, you can share them very easily, and you can be browsing our map store from within your favorite software. And that's in progress now. And that's going to be a really interesting thing, because I think it'll have a huge impact on the number of mind maps we gather together, so we can see how more people are using it. And it's going to change, hopefully, the community behavior that dominates Biggerplate. So in the room today, you've got Chance Brown over here, and right at the back there from Mindjet, you've got Michael Deutsch. Chance and Michael are actually some of the earliest contributors to Biggerplate. And Michael, I think, still holds the record for the most downloaded map. That's pretty cool. Their behavior in sharing their maps willingly is actually not the norm, which probably shouldn't be surprising. The community behavior we see on Biggerplate is I download lots and I don't give back. So we're hoping we can make it as easy as possible for people to share their maps. People might be more inclined to give to the community as well as just take. So again, why are we doing this? It's because this will help to build this evidence, to prove it. We think it's also important that we learn about the mappers, the stories behind the maps. And again, we're not pretending that every story or every map is absolutely fascinating. Some of them are actually really mundane, but they do the job you've used them for. And that's just as important as something that's just staggeringly artistic or whatever it is. So we want to try and extract more user stories, and particularly for us, we're really interested in practical, real-world contexts. As I say, we don't take the line that mind mapping solves everything. We want to learn when are the contexts where this is the absolute go-to tool. When in a process do you switch into a mind map, and then when do you switch out? This is why we've got some really good stuff today from Jim, who's going to talk about a project management sort of context. Is you don't do the whole project in a mind map, but you can sort of approach certain stages in a way that makes it a bit easier. The aim of all of this is to highlight the missing links. We're saying mind mapping is the missing link. We've got to spot those missing links and say, here's where mind mapping fits best. The aim of that is then to show the impact that it has when you sub into the missing link, a mind map. The outcome we hope to achieve through all this is wider adoption. That's generally what most people I meet are actually sort of after. Why aren't more people using this thing in your brain? How many of you have had that sort of feeling, just so I know I'm not talking to no one? Okay, good. It's lucky. The conclusion then. Doing quite well on my time for once. Yes. Never happens. And also we never start on time.
You're wasting.
My glamorous assistant. Well, so the conclusion, if I can, and again, I don't ever stand up here and say we've got all the answers, because we don't. We just like asking stupid questions to good, intelligent people who are interested. My conclusion is mind mapping is the missing link. Have I told you that yet?
Yeah.
Good. Got that point? The community must prove it. Biggerplate is just a member of the mind mapping community, as are Mindjet, Conceptual, all you individual users. We're all part of it, and it's up to us, I think, to prove it, so that when people come and say to us, what is this mind mapping thing? There is a body of evidence. And I asked Dave, who's a lawyer who's speaking to us, okay, if you're talking about evidence and proving stuff, how do you build a body of evidence that people can't really argue with? And he said, in law we call that a slam dunk. You can't lose. That's what we sort of need to create, is just so much good evidence that this stuff works that people can't really argue with it. So it needs your maps. How many of you in this room have uploaded to Biggerplate? See what I mean? Your stories. In the first hour here today, I've heard 3 different contexts for mapping that I've never even considered or heard of. We need to extract those and share those. And we need your ideas today. We really want to hear, what do you think Biggerplate should do next? What should the software developers do next? What should we as practitioners do next? We're very, very interested. And if you've been paying attention to Biggerplate for a long time, you'll see we do actually respond. We build stuff based on what we're hearing. That's sort of what we should do. We don't have anyone to answer to except 65,000 people who are pretty passionate. So today is a start point, and that's really my sort of parting thought for you, is really make the most of the people in the room today. There are some really fascinating people, great mind mapping contexts and situations being used. So I hope you will make the most of it, enjoy engaging with the other people in the room today, and please come and grab me, Graham, at any point if you want to vent your frustrations or share your ideas. So thank you all so much for coming today, and really have a great time.